Hello and welcome to the Gothic Color channel. This video is on a beginner-friendly sewing project for making a little decorative pillow. Check out the description box below for links to the design I'm using, as well as timestamps to the different sections of the video so you can skip to the section you are most interested in. For this little pillow I used my Teal Starburst design printed on a quarter of light Minky fabric. Other materials that I used are some wadding. I used 2.5 centimeters, about an inch thick polyester wadding that I had at hand. You may find it easier to use thinner wadding than that. The standard thread, universal needles, pins and so on for sewing. 2.9 centimeters, about an inch and an eighth self-cover buttons. And pieces of scrap fabric from old project for filling the pillow. I also used some card paper to make a little template for my pillow, as you can see here. I wanted the pillow to be a rounded shape, so I cut the card to the largest square I could fit twice onto my quarter fabric. I then folded the card to cut the rounded shape of the corners. This means that should I decide to make another pillow the same shape and size, I'll have a ready template for it. I then transferred the shape onto my fabric and onto the wadding and cut these out. I pinned each piece of fabric to each piece of wadding to keep them together. From some of the remaining fabric I cut some 2 cm wide strips to use as a trimming around the pillow. The rest of the spare fabric I used for the buttons, but you will see that later on. So I started by doing some long gathering stitches on the corners of each pillow side to get an idea on the final circumference of the pillow. Here you can see me gathering and knotting the thread at the corners to keep the shape. I then measured around the edge of one of the pillow sides to work out how much trimming I needed. I joined the strips of fabric I cut earlier diagonally and sewed them up. I then cut off the excess and pressed the seams before also pressing the continuous strip in half. Next, I basted the corners by hand together and create a gentle ruffle effect. I then pinned and basted the trimming onto one of the pillow sides before basting the pillow sides together, leaving one side open for the stuffing. To do this, I got rid of the cutters I did earlier on the corners to make it easier to match the two sides of the pillow. After checking the right side of the pillow to make sure that the basting worked well and that the trimming was properly secured within the stitch, I turned the pillow inside out again in order to sew up over my basting. Because the wadding I used was very thick, this sandwich of fabric and wadding I had made needed some convincing to go through the sewing machine. But it did work out fine in the end, and I was able to get to turning the pillow the right way out and working on the filling. Here you can see I used a scrap sheet of paper to make into a funnel to help the stuffing go easily into the pillow rather than get constantly caught up onto the fibers of the wadding. You can of course prepare your stuffing beforehand and just put it straight into your pillow, but I just chose to cut the fabric up straight into it. As you can imagine, this is time consuming, but it doesn't demand much attention, so you can easily do this while watching TV in the evenings or listening to music or whatever. Some fabric I cut into small pieces, some I frayed into individual threads. This all helps against having noticeable lumps within the pillow. The wadding around the stuffing covers any minor lumps. This is a good way to use any spare small pieces of fabric you may have, especially synthetic fibers, rather than them ending up in a landfill. So now it's time to close up the open side of the pillow using a ladder stitch. The basting stitch I use to keep the cover fabric and wadding together provides a useful indication as to where my ladder stitching needs to go. Now, this was difficult to do on the desk, so here I am using my lap to support the pillow whilst tightening up and finishing off my ladder stitch. Here you can see me knotting and getting rid of the excess thread. Now to work on the buttons. I found 2 good points on my remaining fabric on which to center my buttons. I marked around each button with an extra centimeter for gathering allowance and cut out my fabric. I then did a running stitch around the edge of each piece and gathered them over the top before securing the underside of each button. Once the buttons were ready, I found the center of each side of the pillow and sewed a few stitches through it to help create an indent into it. I then threaded on the buttons and secured them into place, as you can see here. So there you go, a fun little decorative pillow. The resulting pillow is sturdy and firm, which makes it an excellent bit of back support. Here you can see it on the sofa. Doesn't quite go with the pillows I have already there, but you get the idea. In my next video, I'm planning to show how to use fabric for a crafting project, so no sewing involved. I will be using some printed velvet to make a tactile cover for some old folders I have. If you're interested in seeing more videos for sewing and crafting inspiration, why not subscribe to my channel? Also, I would appreciate it if you press the like button and/or leave a comment down below, as that helps with the YouTube algorithm and the visibility of the channel. Thank you, and see you next time. Goodbye!